Welcome back to Tech Mahindra Global Chess League. It is the Alpine SG Pipers against the American Gambits. And we want you to get involved in our poll. You tell us who will win the clash of the icons. Will it be world number 1, Magnus Carlsen, or world number 2, Hikaru Nakamura? Head to fans.globalchessleague.com to cast your vote right now. And we head over to the floor as Ketty is ready to bring out the teams.
That's right, we are ready to welcome in the venue Alpine SG Pipers and American Gambits. Alpine SG Pipers icon Magnus Carlsen, Pragnananda, Richard Rapport, Ho Yufan, Katerina Lachno, and Daniel Darda. American Gambits led by icon Hikaru Nakamura, Jan Krzysztof Duda, Yu Yangi, Bibi Sara Solbaeva, Elizabeth Pets, and Jonas Bjerre.
The players are ready, and it looks like Magnus Carlsen could not wait to get to his board, which means we can't wait to get to our commentators on the call. It's Sagar Shah and Jovanka Haska.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's the big one today. Magnus Carlsen of the Alpine SG Pipers takes on Hikaru Nakamura from the American Gambits. It's on the icon board, and to call out all the action, I have with me the 9-time British champion, Jovanka Haska. Hello, Jovanka.
Hello, Saga. This is absolutely legend because we have Magnus against Hikaru. They're going to start off first. I cannot wait when these two play each other on and off the board. You kind of feel, you sense the rivalry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of them are in good form because Magnus beat Anish Giri while Hikaru beat Vishy Anand today. It's game number 2 for both of them on this day, so it's quite a long day for them.
Absolutely. And also for the American Gambits, they started off the day. Now they've had to wait while they've had to psych themselves up, conserve their energy, and now they are playing in the final match of the day. And after this, we have crossed the halfway point.
Right, and as of now, we can see on board number 2, it's Pragnananda versus Duda. The arbiter comes in to start the clock, and off we go.
Off we go, and there we can see Pragnananda against Duda, and it opens up with a queen's pawn stepping 2 squares forward. And look at that, copycat chess from Duda, and he employs an opening that we call the Queen's Gambit declined. But moving on to...
Look at this, accelerated dragon.
That's what happens as soon as Black pushes that little pawn forward. He wants to put the dark square bishop on the very long diagonal, and then the game will continue. But Magnus, taken a little bit by surprise, he's just deciding what he's going to play.
Yeah, I think Magnus is deciding between pushing his pawn forward, which is one of the main moves, pushing it 1 square forward, which is also possible, and maybe even like bringing the knight out. So there are all these possibilities, and they all lead to different positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hikaru looking up to the screens, perhaps just deciding what to do. But Magnus thinking.
Yeah, it's been more than a minute for Magnus, while Hikaru has just taken a second on the clock. So very smart decision there, and Magnus pushes his pawn after all. Will he go into the main line theories? That is very complicated. And Magnus goes for something, Jovanka, which is known as the Maroczy bind in chess.
Yes, is when you put those 2 pawns on those certain light squares that they certainly bind the position. They cramp the center.
Yeah, and that's what White has managed to do. Gain space, bind the position, and this move that Hikaru is playing so rapidly, the queen coming out, knight jumping here, another check. This is all well-known theory.
Yes, it is. And there we can see that games 3 and 4 are kicking off. Richard Rapport against Yu Yang Yi. Now, I'm excited for this one. Richard, one of my favorite players, plays in a very unconventional style. And Yu Yang Yi, he is such a demon calculator.
Yeah, he's also very, very strong here. Oof. And we have Yu Yang Yi.
Yeah, and there we can see on the camera that Yu Yang Yi has employed something that we call the Berliner defense. And there we do see that Yu Yang Yi moves his knight out of the way so that his pieces can get developed.
Yeah, so right now, very, very tame opening chosen here by Richard, but it can lead to some complications if black is not accurate. So quite an interesting choice here, playing for perhaps 2 results with white pieces, a win or a draw.
Yeah. And one of the things about this is that Richard now has to play very precisely in order to squeeze out a small advantage. Because when you take a look at the pawns in the middle, they are symmetrical. So everything is now going to hinge on the fact that black has placed their knight in front of all of those pawns on the left, which makes it very difficult to advance. So that's why white is trying to seize as much space as possible on that side of the board, because it's just about those small gains. Yeah. You get enough, you try to make them into a large advantage.
Yeah, the small advantages, if gathered enough, would lead to a big one, and Richard Rapport looks right now definitely that he would like to push here. And boards number 5 and 6 about to begin here. We have Katerina Lagno taking on Elizabeth Pates and Daniel Darda taking on Jonas Bier.
Yes. Ooh. And Daniel Darda, he was the person involved in that dramatic game in the final round where he just... I don't know. The game was declared drawn. I don't want to say it was agreed to drawn, but it was a controversial game, certainly.
Yeah, it was, and actually Daniel was very quick to sort of accept the result of the arbiter. A lot of sportsmanship there by him, regardless of what the decision was. And I think that's wonderful to see in these young prodigies. You know, they all have been like very friendly to each other after the games, talking to each other. It's very nice to see this.
It's a beautiful experience for them to play on teams, the same as the icons, the superstars, and for them just to hang out, share ideas, get tips. We heard also from the captain of the American Gambits how Hikaru Nakamura was helping the players, giving them psychological tips, telling them where to go, where to improve, and where their strengths were. And there we see Jonas Bier from the American Gambits opening by pushing his king's pawn 2 squares forward. And now this is a very classical opening. It's been played many, many, many times. And it's just all about developing the pieces and getting ready for that breakthrough in the center.
Yeah, it's a slow-paced game. Just like how Rapport pushed his pawn forward to gain space, Daniel Darda has also done that here. What's your thoughts on this matchup, Jovanka? Because both the teams are doing pretty evenly on the scorecard. If you look at Alpine SG Pipers, they've played 4 matches, 2 wins and 2 losses. And American Gambits, also the same thing, 2 wins and 2 losses.
But they're very ambitious teams. Yeah, I mean, how can you not be when you have Magnus and Hikaru as your icon? So I think this is a very important match, because you want to be fighting for that top spot, because at the end of the day, only the top 2 finishers will qualify to the final.
Yeah, and right now the PBG Alaskan Knights look unstoppable. So the fight for the second spot is intense, and one game that's going to contribute massively towards it is this icon board between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. It's actually slowed down a bit, and Magnus simply develops his bishop. Let's just run through the moves that have happened here. So the queen went here, knight jumped back, the queen moved forward, Jovanka attacking the pawn here, and Magnus shifted his queen 1 square, pawn came up, and knight was developed.
Right, but I must say one thing. Hikaru is breaking the opening rules. Because we're always taught, you know, at the beginning, you just develop, you get your pawns in the center, you get your knights out, then your bishops, then you castle, then the queen steps forward, connects the rooks. That's the formula we're all ingrained with at the beginning. But take a look at Hikaru. Hikaru has left his knight at home, and yeah, this is the point I want to mention. That queen has come out on a little folly.
Yeah, that queen could either do some real damage or could even get trapped. So this is actually a very, very tricky moment in the game. And I must say, Jovanka, that Magnus would be pleased with what he has got out of the opening, because he has a position which is very rich.
Yeah, he certainly has a position that is very complicated. And he has a target, as you mentioned. He can try to play to trap the queen. In fact, it is a direct threat right now. You know, you could literally pick up your pawn right on the edge of the board and ask the question to the queen. No, you can't trap her because she has that mouse hole on.
She has this to go back, but it could get very, very tricky because there's only one square left.
Exactly. And then, you know, white could even push the B pawn and attack her even more and gaining even more space, because this position is all about control. So I'm suspecting here that actually Hikaru needs to find some really radical moves. And I'm thinking like jump in with the knight right into the center.
Ooh, here.
Or maybe...
And how about, Jovanka, just chopping this off?
Yeah, you can do that, but I like my bishop, so it didn't come instinctively to me. Oh, but hang on a second.
Ooh.
Hikaru...
Put the bishop into the center of the board.
Interesting idea. So Hikaru is basically saying, there's an unprotected square in the middle. I want it for my knight.
Right. And this one, now, if Magnus were to capture this, the knight would settle in on the center of the board. This one, very interesting moment once again. What is Magnus's decision going to be here? He can play the move that you were suggesting, Jovanka. Just push the pawn one square forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. You might as well gain some time, you know, force the queen to go backwards and then take the decision as to whether you want to change bishops or not.
Right. By the way, the trivia said something very interesting there. It said Magnus Carlsen is the player to have the highest ever rating in the history of chess. 2882. That's just amazing. We've been playing chess for centuries, and here's the guy who's had the highest rating.
Yeah, I have to kind of say he's the first human to have that, because these days engines are playing at 3,600.
True. I mean, humans are finding it difficult to break into 2,900, while
engines are out there.
Yeah, we no longer think about competing with them. Just learn from them and get better.
Yes, that's exactly what we have to do. Well, big decision there for Magnus, and you can see on the body language, Magnus just having to think that little bit harder, whereas Hikaru looks very relaxed.
Yes, and while Magnus is thinking about his moves, 14 minutes on his clock, 15 minutes for Hikaru. Let's go to board number 2, where Pragnananda is taking on Jan Sistov Duda, and it's a complex position, a crazy one on the board.
Yeah, and I have to ask the question, Saga, do you like sacrificing material? Do you like giving up a piece for pawns? I ask that because that's exactly what Pragnananda has done.
I extremely enjoy when someone has done that at the top level, especially a player like Prag, because Prag is very solid in general. So when he sacrifices something, you can see he has one piece less. He must have had some deep thoughts behind it before doing it. You can see here, he has attacked the knight. If the knight moves away, then the other knight is hanging. And look at Duda, he's taken the knight on the square. Prag capture.
With the pawn. Oh, this is getting spicy.
Because if he took with the queen, he would have come under this, and also the knight would take the pawn.
Yes, and that would have been a beautiful counter strike. So Pragnananda being forced to recapture that bishop with the pawn. But the problem now is that White's king is also a little bit vulnerable. But the big question for Duda is actually how is he going to hold on to his extra material? Because if he moves the knight, then suddenly the other knight is loose. It's going to be taken. And if you move the other knight, then the queen, unfortunately, is under fire from the white rook.
True, true. This one is extremely complex and Duda needs to find a good move here. And while he's thinking about it, he has 12 minutes on the clock, 15 for Pragnananda. There's some action that's happening on board number 4 between Ho Yifan and Bibisara Asaubaeva. We can quickly have a look at it.
And we see Ho Yifan, she has an extra 3 minutes on the clock. Bibisara is thinking. And this position looks like the type of positions we've seen Bibisara plays. She doesn't like to play with too much space in the beginning. She just concentrates on getting her pieces developed. And then she starts to slowly untangle in the middle game.
True, but right now, this little bit of extra space that White has, and with this pawn, A-pawn, it seems like everyone in the team of Alpine SG Pipers spoke to each other and said, let's move our A-pawn today. So you have like Rapport doing it and Darda doing it, and now Ho Yifan also pushing it all the way to A5.
Do you know, the only person who hasn't done it yet is Magnus Carlsen.
Oh, he hasn't pushed his A-pawn.
He didn't get the memo.
Magnus is the one who might have come up with the idea, and then he himself didn't do it. Okay, so pawn push here, very committal move, by the way. Because this not only closes down your own bishop, it weakens a pawn, it weakens squares. I think this is a very dangerous decision that Bibisara has done here.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Because if that pawn sitting there on the d6 square is not able to move, then it will simply be a weakness. It will be lost. And there's already a queen and a rook lined up against it. So what is Bibisara's plan once the knight just moves?
Yeah, this is going to be quite a great position for Ho Yifan. She needs to strike back. She lost her game earlier in the day against Tan Zhongyi and Jovanka. She has played this move. Do you want to go and check out the icon board between Hikaru and Magnus?
Yeah, let's go straight there, because we left at a very interesting moment of the game. Hikaru had offered a trade of bishops, and we were speculating that Magnus would just simply attack the queen. But instead, a trade of bishops has occurred, because I can see from the video that there is a knight sitting where the bishop used to be in the center.
Right, and if we look at the clocks, there 14 minutes, 59 seconds for Hikaru, and Magnus down to 10 minutes, 2 seconds. And I really love how slowly we are going into the position. It's like we're giving the viewers a feel of being there. So this was the moment where we left off. Magnus took, the knight jumped in, and the bishop moved up. Rook came ahead, and White simply castled it out. Knight came out here, and this is where Magnus is thinking.
Yeah, this is a really interesting position here, because when you're judging positions, you don't just look at what's currently on the board. You think ahead. How can I take more space? How can I coordinate my pieces? And there we see Magnus sliding the rook over behind its pawn, perhaps with the eventual idea of actually advancing the pawn in the middle, one square, just to open up the position, or maybe just simply making sure that everything is protected. A lot of the strong players these days, they are all about making sure that every piece is overprotected.
Right, and Jovanka, don't you feel that Hikaru's opening strategy has kind of worked out here? Because even though Magnus has like more space and everything, Black's pieces now look quite comfortable because one pair of pieces got traded, so there's more space now on the board.
There's more space. I mean, where the Black Knight is sitting is the dream square. So
Beautiful.
If Hikaru can maintain that knight there for the rest of the game, it's going to be even better. If he can swap off White's knights for the knight and the bishop and just leave that knight, it's going to be untouchable.
Right.
So Hikaru certainly has a lot of long-term play. And Magnus has to find the way to unravel. Ooh. And I like the way that Hikaru is constantly playing aggressive moves. You know, maybe the knight is going to jump into another central square and add even more firepower to... Oh, well, this is just provocation there from Magnus. Is saying, why don't you play what you want to play?
Yeah, I don't believe you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. This is like... And Hikaru goes in there. Magnus comes back. Isn't this pawn hanging, Jovanka? Just look at this. 1, 2, 3, and 4 attackers, and you have just 2 defenders.
And this is such an important game for the match, because there you can see on the points table the Alpine SG Pipers and the American Gambits are tied. They have the same points. And this is such an important match for the standings. Top 2 finishers, they will make it to the final. And Saga, we really have to dive in. What is going to happen if Hikaru says, I'm hungry today, I'm taking that pawn?
Yeah, and if you take this pawn, then white will take here, and you take with the bishop, and this is where the deadly move comes up, Jovanka. Our knight jumps into the center of the board, attacking the queen. You can't take it because the rook is hanging behind, and this is what Magnus was thinking for 5 minutes.
Yeah, he saw this. He anticipated this plan in his think. And wow, and this goes to show the perils of not getting your king castled quickly enough. So there's no way that Hikaru can touch that pawn that's up for grabs. It's poison, don't do it. And Hikaru should instead just focus perhaps on getting his own king to safety.
You know, it's moves like this when you face against Magnus is when you realize his true strength, because he gives you what you wanted and then you realize what you wanted was actually not good. And right now Hikaru is like, oh my god, why did I get my knights here? Because now he's just going to kick me away, kick my queen away and gain a lot of space.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, and there you can see Hikaru.
Yeah, he's now
thinking, what did I do? Why did I allow this? Because you're right, you know, because black is the one that doesn't have so much space. As soon as white does the kickback, pushing the pawns forward to attack the knight, then suddenly what's going to be happening is that black is completely going to be on the defensive. And let's not forget that the knight can still jump in to this beautiful square in the center, the D5 square, and start harassing the queen.
Yes, this knight jumping in here, as you rightly pointed out, Jovanka, would be a big thing that Magnus has in his strategy here. And for now, we can take a short break. We want to continue watching this action because it's 2 world-class players really testing out each other. Let's quickly head over to board number 5 right now, where we have Katrina Lagno and Elizabeth Pates. And here, Katrina is just expanding her position as if she didn't care. She's pushing her pawns.
This is my kind of chess, which is you just push those pawns forward, get as far as you can go, have the pieces behind them, open up a line, and ideally, if you're doing this against the king, you checkmate them. But, and this is exactly what Katarina is doing this, but with great space, remember, comes great responsibility. Because what happens is, if Katarina is not precise, then Elizabeth will be incredibly effective with her counterpunch.
Absolutely. So at this point, this game is in white's favor, but as the time starts to run low and we can see Lagno having 10 minutes on the clock, it can become very dangerous. And meanwhile, we have a result right now on board number 3. Richard Rapport and Yu Yangi just drew their game, which is actually quite a normal result for both the sides. You know, they are like, okay, fine, let's remove this board. We'll play on 5 boards now.
Yes, and we did see that actually from their openings, that they chose a symmetrical looking opening where it was all about small advantages. And Richard was very content with just getting a draw. But, well, the fire is certainly happening on the other 5 boards.
Yeah, let's have a look at that, how it ended. The game between Richard and Yu Yangi. White took a lot of space there, but you can see Richard.
Did you see that draw offer? It was just eye contact, finger, draw, done. And the players smiled, arbiter calls over, and they are...
Oh, arbiter wanted to actually see how the draw happened.
Yeah.
And here the thing is, it's a draw on board number 3. And going back to our icon board, there have been certain moves that have been played. After bishop went back, Hikaru said, okay, I'm not touching that pawn here, I'm castling. And Magnus pushes the queen back first and then brings the knight into the center, just like you mentioned, Joanka. The bishop took it.
Had to take.
Pawn takes, and then pawn to e6 by Hikaru. And this is where we are. Magnus makes his move. He brings the knight in. And if the queen enters here and the knight enters here, it could be a huge attack.
It is. It's good night. If the queen starts sniffing around really close to the enemy king, that is it. It's over. She is perfectly paired with a knight. They're the most dangerous combinations. So now it's time for Hikaru just to kick this knight away. Do not even let it close to your king.
Like you're saying, go with the pawn.
Go away. Don't want you.
Wow, but that does weaken a few squares, Joanka. Your e-pawn, my knight jumping here. Wouldn't that be risky?
It would be incredibly risky, and it would be a very gutsy decision if he did something like that. Well, either way, you've got to stop a knight getting in and checking the king. So you've got to start covering those dark squares. This is the moment where Hikaru would like to magically pick up the bishop that's now not on the board and put it back.
Here, yeah, the bishop is needed here.
Yes.
Also, Joanka, there is a fork looming large here, but I think Magnus hardly cares.
That's irrelevant. If you grab that rook, it was literally doing not a thing in the world. Checkmate ends the day.
Right, so basically if Hikaru jumps in here, Magnus jumps in with the queen, and if you get greedy, it's already checkmate on the other side of the board. So some really important decisions for Hikaru to make, and while he's doing that, his time is down to 8 minutes on the clock.
Very, very difficult position there for Hikaru, because like you mentioned, the options are to start retreating with the knight to make sure that a white knight doesn't infiltrate. But this again, it feels quite shaky because the white queen will be allowed to just launch herself at the black king. Or you have to make a very committal move. You just ruin your pawn structure, weaken those squares, and just hope that your pieces are active enough to counterbalance these big weaknesses.
Yeah, and this one is looking really, really intense. Hikaru not making his move. This is... I'm very tempted to stay here, but there is a big development on board number 4. Ho Yifan is actually having a very big advantage against Bibisara Asaubayeva.
Yeah, and it's all to do with pawns. Pawns are the life and soul of the position. Now, why are these little guys so important? Well, when they're not connected, they become weak, they become targets. And take a look at Bibisara. She has 2 pawns under fire from the white queen.
Ooh. And also this bishop is kind of dead for the time being.
Totally. White's rook is on an open line, ready to pounce onto the 7th row. If it gets there, it's in heaven. Also, the bishops are coming to life, you know.
Yeah, this is looking really good for Ho Yifan and for the Alpine SG Pipers. With Yifan actually doing well, Magnus doing well. This is exactly why they were one of the favorite teams. You know, they had both the world #1 players in their team. So if both of them strike, it would be something. But the American Gambits are not going to take this down easily. On board number 6, the Prodigy board, we have Daniel Darda and Jonas Beer, where Jonas is slowly and steadily pushing with the black pieces.
Yeah, this is a full fire on the board scenario here, because you can take a look at black's pawns. They are coming for white's king, and you can see the pieces. They're circling around, getting ready to find those dark squares that are vulnerable. And the source of white's problems is because white has actually picked up a pawn very close to the king and advanced it 2 squares, and this is very, very weakening. Well, it's still a fight though, because white does have control over the center, and if you're able to get counterplay in that direction, then unfortunately black can't attack with a free hand.
Right, and Jovanka, it might be a good time for us to pull up all the 6 boards here and to have a look at what's going on. So on board number 1, Magnus is slightly better and pushing. On board number 2, we have black, Duda, who's pushing a bit from the American Gambit side. On board 3, it's already a draw. Board 4, Ho Yifan is doing well for the Alpine Pipers. Board 5 is slightly better for the American Gambit. So it's a very balanced match right now.
Yes, it is very balanced, and so many things can happen. It's still early days. As soon as the clock starts ticking down, that's when we're going to see everything clear up.
Wow, look at this. What has just happened here? So, when he pushed the pawn forward, Jovanka, Magnus was like, no, I'm not moving my knight away. I'm going to push my pawn, attack your queen.
Well, that's why he's the goat of chess, right? Wow, what a move.
What a
move. And Hikaru, of course, takes it because you have to.
And now the knight in the center is destabilized because the pawn has moved there. So the queen comes in and Magnus brings another piece to attack here.
Yeah, this is looking really unpleasant for Hikaru, but don't write him off. He's one of the world's best defenders.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you. Hikaru just doesn't care if his position is good or bad. All he cares is to find the next best move. And that's what he has to do in big measure, because Magnus right now is clearly better.
Yeah, Magnus is certainly the one in control. But looking at the screen, he doesn't seem that comfortable. And when it comes to clock sit times, we can see that Magnus does have a lead there. Hikaru down to under 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Yeah, the big question for Hikaru is how is he going to construct a defensive setup to protect the dark square weaknesses and also the center.
Exactly, it's not going to be easy. His knight is doing right now a good job. But on the other hand, the white knight is an absolute monster on that square, controlling all these squares and making black's life so difficult.
And you can't even trade it off as well. I mean, because if you do, another demon appears. Suddenly a pawn will be reaching there. But okay, well...
He goes back. He wants to trade it, Jovanka. He wants to get that knight out from there.
I think this is a good idea in principle. I didn't see that knight retreat. It's actually a very difficult thing to spot. Knight retreats, bishop retreats, because you're always looking forward as a chess player.
Because as you mentioned, if you take here, you are left with a very bad knight. But now what Hikaru is doing is saying that I will take with my other knight. So Magnus brings his rook into the center and Hikaru chops it off.
Yes.
Pawn takes.
But there have been some changes in the position. Magnus now has a very strong pawn. It is blockaded by the rook and, well, Magnus opening up lines, trying to destabilize that beautiful horse there in the middle.
And Hikaru said, my knight is not going anywhere. This pawn is going to protect it. But now comes another piece to destabilize the position. This is an epic game. Love it.
Love it. And take a look at how Magnus is playing and delivering these moves so quickly. And Hikaru now down to 4 minutes and 15 seconds. And the position is so tense. His position is even teetering on the brink because the pawn is actually going to start advancing even further. So Hikaru, desperate times, call for desperate measures and starts going on the counterattack, attacking the queen.
Pushes his pawn, queen moves forward. In fact, I must tell you that I can see the engine here. Both of them are making like the best engine moves, one after the other. It's such a high quality game.
Totally. Excellent defense there from Hikaru. Because if he steps 1 foot wrong, that's it. His position will fall apart because the king is unsafe. And look at Hikaru. He's not afraid of retreating a knight from a fantastic square onto a place where it can defend the black king.
Yeah, and he wants to maybe snatch that pawn. Yeah, if he gets it, he would be very happy. Magnus now brings his rook and attacks the queen. Maybe the best move is to go back with the knight. Oh, look at Hikaru there. He said, okay, I made an error to bring my knight back. I'm going back.
Okay, but now comes this H-pawn.
Harry, the
Harry
H-pawn.
has a name. It has a devastating effect. And it's the English chess philosophy that when you're in doubt, you just push that H-pawn and see how far it can go. Oh my God!
He's bringing his king in.
What is this? This is a Stein's king. Now, Stein's was a former world champion. He's one of the first world champions, and he really believed that a king was an excellent piece and it could hold its own against an army. I don't think so.
Oh my God, but what's the logic
Okay,
of
he
this
just
move?
wants this. He steps forward with the queen.
Oh, he
Offer a
wants
queen.
to trade the
Yes.
queens. Wow, that's the point.
And it might be a bad middle game king, but it sure is a good end game king.
In the end game, the king would be a monster there.
And Magnus, he
No.
slides his rook over and says, no,
You
that
are
ain't
not
happening.
coming here. Wow, that was well spotted there, Jovanka. And Magnus pushing Hikaru down on the clock. 3 minutes, 18 seconds for Hikaru. 4 minutes, 15 seconds for Magnus. No increment.
No increment. Oh, this is difficult for Hikaru. His position is so desperate. It's desperate because it's so difficult to find a stabilizing move. Okay, he just slides his rook over. Okay, this is nice. Maybe this knight can just round up this annoying thorn in his side, that pawn on e6.
Yeah, he could have taken it on the last move, but it was so risky that he decided to move his rook, and Magnus now said, sorry, now you cannot take it anymore. If you take it, your queen is hanging.
Yeah. And
he takes
wow.
the pawn. Okay, okay.
Oh, he doesn't care. Wow, he
He
is
literally
really
doesn't care.
he is testing Magnus by breaking all the rules. He just doesn't care about his pawn structure. It's shattered. It's bad. His pawns are so weak on the right side of the board.
And look at Magnus there now thinking about what is my next strategy. I used my bishop, I used my pawn, I used my h-pawn. Hikaru has defended admirably. Jovanka, where's the next ammunition coming from?
I don't know.
Oh, the rook joins in. Okay.
This is Hikaru's idea. He's actually going to muse his rook, use that now open G line, and just hold the position together with some nifty rook work.
Right, the rook is attacking the pawn, and I believe Hikaru will defend it at the same time. Plans to double down here.
Yeah, this is such unusual chess there from Hikaru that he's actually forcing Magnus to use the time on the clock to come up with ways to attack the position.
Yeah, this game has lived up to its expectation. Hikaru now threatening also rook here or a queen here to trade off some things.
Yeah, but look at Magnus. He is finding those moves. He's got a
attacking
big
here.
threat. Exactly.
Wow.
Rook takes pawn. That would be such a knockout blow.
Only move to defend everything there.
It's so rare that you have a rook right next to your king, merrily defending everything. And it's very rare, I have to say, to play so boldly with your king. Do not try this at home, folks. This is only for the experienced, or if you only must.
If you are the world number 1 and 2, you can do this because rook f5, it's just like both rooks are kind of mirroring each other. And here rook move is forced, but Hikaru is taking his time. What is he thinking? Oh, he's thinking maybe he can snatch this pawn. Perhaps that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, that would be one way to play, but okay, oh, he pushes his pawn.
But that's a mistake. That's, I think, the first serious error now. Magnus can give a check.
He should give a check. He gets a free move.
Yeah, check. King
goes
goes
back.
And pushes forward. That was the best
And
move by
another
Magnus.
pawn comes. Wow.
Oh, you know, Jovanka, now the winning move for Magnus, the only move is to drop the bishop back. Can he find it? I don't...
One thing he
he's not
shouldn't do, because if he takes the pawn, black can actually capture. Hang on a second.
Oh.
Black can capture.
That's what Hikaru's going to do. He's going to take here.
Yes,
he
he
takes
does it.
Oh, and now he moves the king to the side. He didn't recapture.
But now the rook can move away and just block that diagonal. Whoa.
Wow.
Some beautiful defense there from Hikaru.
Okay, the rook comes in and Magnus like, I'm not letting off your king, go away just yet. I'm still going to attack you. This pawn is still very soft.
In fact, white is threatening rook takes pawn. Now that would be
this one.
killer.
Bone crusher there. King takes and you just pick up the rook. Look at Hikaru shaking his head.
Oh, how
1
to
minute,
find...
10 seconds left for him.
Is there a defense, Saga?
Yes, the only defense is to take rook. Oh, finds it!
He finds it.
Oh, man. Hikaru, what a move. This is double exclamation, because if you take with the bishop, now I give you a check here, Jovanka. This is insanely beautiful. A check comes in, and now it's winning for black because it's a mate here.
No way. That is
move.
amazing. And so you can see Magnus, he does not take the rook. Of course he doesn't. He sees everything, and he plays
He's
rook
shaking
takes
his
rook.
head. He's shaking his head. It's a game of equals here. You know, both of them matching move for move.
They might be matching move for move, but they are not matching in terms of second by second, because Hikaru down to his last 43 seconds. This
but
is
now Hikaru's winning.
No.
Hikaru's winning here. His king is actually on the offensive. Magnus takes the pawn, and rook at 6 was the best move, but he brings his knight. It's once again equal.
Yeah, okay, but this is insane, because there's a big threat of actually coming to check. The knight is attacking the rook, giving a check from Magnus, and now the king comes in. That's gutsy, but it's good.
Magnus has an extra piece in the attack. His king is attacking.
And now the bishop comes back. It had to come back, because black was actually threatening a deadly check there on the D1 square. And Hikaru finding those moves, but he only got 33 seconds.
Ooh, yes, 33. Magnus has 1 extra minute on the clock. I think, Jovanka, that would prove to be critical here.
Yeah, okay.
Takes the pawn.
And now I think Magnus has to just hope that Hikaru doesn't have enough time.
The best move, Jovanka. Queen attacking the pawn. Check. Oh, maybe there's a perpetual here. It's a draw.
Yeah.
It's a draw incoming.
Yeah.
Look at
26 seconds. He's checking everyone's board.
Hikaru looking at the screen and Magnus smiling, saying, you know, you don't have time anyway.
What a game.
Too good. Too good. Absolute brilliance there on the board by both these players. This is pure magic.
That was something else, Saga. And we can see a whole load of other games finished as well. Maybe we can check out what the situation is.
No, it's a very exciting match, because top 3 boards ended in draws. We had Elizabeth Pates winning her game for the American Gambits. And on board 4, if we can go there, Ho Yifan is winning. And look at Hikaru and Magnus, they're still analyzing. We hope to go there back and show you what they were talking about. But here, Ho Yifan is winning.
Well, it's an opposite color bishop endgame, but what matters are those pawns, and there are 3 of them, as you mentioned, and we see
equal now. So the all boils down to the prodigy board. Let's head over there very quickly. Daniel Darda and Jonas Bier. It's very important for Daniel Darda to win this, because right now the American Gambits have 1 extra point because of that black win.
Exactly. So Daniel Darda has to win. Everything is going to hinge on the position and the clock. In terms of the clock, everything is level so far. In terms of the position, oh, it is a messy, messy endgame.
What do you think? Does White have any chances here? Because Jonas is like, a draw is completely fine for me.
Oh, but the nerves are ticking. And there you can see Daniel just nervously sliding the rook over to the edge of the board to chase down those pawns.
Yeah, he now has an extra pawn on the rook file. Will that play a critical role?
Yeah, it's about both players holding their nerves together. It's not easy when you know the match, maybe even the tournament, could depend on this moment.
Yeah, I agree. The one who wins this match, it will have great chances to finish in top 2.
And you see Daniel, he's looking up. He's checking out the results. He knows he has to win this.
Yeah, that was actually a well-timed look at the scorecard by him, because he still has 1 minute 43 seconds, and I'm sure he's now very motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there ideas of actually... Okay, he throws in the rook to the edge of the board. Be careful with Harry, the H-pawn. It is coming forward, and so that is why the Black King takes a step back to keep an eye on it. Still such a messy endgame, because if the Black King can keep control, over. And there you can see.
Magnus is watching. He's like, let's go, Daniel. You need to do it for the team.
He's like standing there trying to kind of transmit those chess neurons.
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, Magnus standing there can intimidate, you know, the opponent. But I think Jonas is just completely into his game. He doesn't even see Magnus there. Check. Jovanka, it seems like white has enough to keep the game going. This h-pawn, the rook on the 7th, the knight being active.
Yeah, but the white needs to win. White needs to win, and it needs to be all about that h-pawn. But it's still such a complicated endgame because black also has a potential pass pawn in one of the center pawns.
Yeah, right now the rook swings over, trying to attack this. And he wants to win this, but fantastic move by Daniel. He's attacking
but
here.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
There's some pawns that are vulnerable, right? And that's what Daniel does.
Yeah.
He just simply
Ooh,
retreats the knight, attacking the pawn on e5.
Absolutely. The king moves in.
Okay, now the rook can just slide anywhere, just to make sure you move it.
But Jovanka, I'm amazed by the quality of play of these players. Like, they are so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are great players. And here, the Prodigy board is called that for a reason. And there you see the players. They are under the minute.
Yes.
And once again...
56 seconds for Daniel, 38 seconds for Jonas. Brings back his knight and takes the pawn. Wow, white is better now. And it seems like this is great news for the SG Alpine Pipers.
Yeah.
Check.
Thrown in a check. And now he takes another pawn.
Oh, he's so sharp. He's seen everything, it feels. I think Daniel is in the zone.
Absolutely. He is using every wit.
Winning.
He is winning. He's quite a bit material up. And throws a check.
Oh, he's blundered a rook. Daniel Darda does it for Alpine SG Pipers, and Magnus pats him on the back. Daniel Darda gets the win.
Unbelievable match.
What a match, and Jonas there, of course, unhappy, but Magnus has the smile on his face. His team has won, and there you can see Magnus is such a team player. Yeah, he stood there right till the very end.
Yeah, he stood there
And
willing his teammate to win. And there we can see the reaction. Let's have a look at how Magnus and Daniel walk to their dugouts.
Yeah, they are so pleased right now with this, and such a big result for the Alpine SG Pipers. They now have a great chance of finishing in top 2, Jovanka.
Absolutely. I mean, what a win there from Daniel. And now we see Daniel walk into the dugout and the reaction. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of celebrations, high fives. What a victory there for the Alpine SG Pipers.
There you have Peter Heine Nielsen, who is Magnus's personal trainer, who's there. Oh, you fans smiling there. Daniel Dardak is he's so happy that he's done this for his team. It's such a proud moment.
And there you can see Daniel confessing he almost had
I
a
didn't
heart
exchange
attack.
a knife to get a draw rook endgame. I got slightly worse with some tricks.
Yeah, beautiful. I think Daniel played amazingly well. And let's have a look at the scorecard here.
Yeah, it was a sensational day of chess, and it finishes with a brilliant match. And there we can see 3 draws on the top boards, but in the end, take a look at what happened on the bottom.
Yeah, Oh Yifan won it, and Daniel Darda as well. The final score 9-7 in the favor of Alpine SG Pipers. American Gambits played really well, and actually hats off to Hikaru for defending that game against Magnus, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, that was an epic encounter.